In every classroom, there's a seat nobody really notices. Not the loudest seat, not the funniest one, just the one by the window where a 13-year-old is quietly watching everyone else figure out how to be seen. They're not shy because they're scared. They're just listening in a world that keeps forgetting to ask what they think. This is the life of an introverted teenager. Level 1. Learning the room. Age 13. It's the first week of a new school year, and everyone else seems to already know how to do this, how to walk into a room and instantly have something to say. The introvert does something different. They watch, they listen, they spend the first week quietly learning who's kind, who's loud for attention, and who actually means what they say before deciding who's worth talking to at all. By the second month, that quiet has a cost nobody warns them about. Teachers learn the names of the loud kids first. Classmates remember the funny ones, the confident ones, the ones who fill up a room just by walking into it. The introvert answers when called on, turns in every assignment on time, and still manages to pass through an entire week almost completely unnoticed, not disliked, not excluded, just quietly absent from everyone's memory of the day. Lunch becomes a small daily test. Some days there's a familiar face at a familiar table. Other days there isn't, and the library becomes the easier option. A quiet corner between the shelves, a book held up less for reading and more as a reason to be sitting alone without it looking like a problem. On the bus ride home, the window seat becomes its own small ritual. Headphones in, forehead against the glass, replaying the day's conversations that never got said out loud. Nobody else on that bus knows how much was actually happening behind the silence. Every so often, a teacher notices something the classmates don't. A raised hand that only comes twice a week but always says something worth writing down. An essay returned with a comment that reads more like recognition than a grade. It isn't attention exactly. It's the quiet realization, weeks in, that being unnoticed and being unremarkable were never actually the same thing. Level 1. The quiet beginning. Age 13. Friends 0. Confidence 68%. Social battery 100%. Stress 25%. Level 2. The weight of being unseen. By 15, the pattern has a name, even if nobody's said it out loud. Social battery. A birthday party, a group project, a school assembly. These aren't dangerous. They're just draining in a way that seems to confuse everyone else. After a few hours of conversation, the introvert isn't upset or bored. They're simply out of charge. The way a phone dies faster the more apps are running in the background. Nobody explains this to the other kids, so it gets misread constantly. Turning down a hangout looks like disinterest. Going quiet mid-conversation looks like awkwardness. Needing an hour alone after school looks antisocial, when really it's the only way the battery refills enough to function again tomorrow. At night, the comparison starts. A phone screen lights up a dark bedroom, scrolling through people who look confident in every photo, funny in every caption, effortlessly surrounded by friends in every story. The introvert starts asking a question nobody their age is equipped to answer honestly. Why can't I be like them? What the feed never shows is the 30 deleted photos behind the one that got posted, or the group chat that looks lively in screenshots and empty in real life. The comparison feels personal. It rarely is. At a birthday party that should have felt fun, the introvert finds themselves doing quiet math in the back of their head. How many more minutes of small talk before it's socially acceptable to leave? How to explain, "I just need to go home," without it sounding like something's wrong. Nothing is wrong. The battery runs on a different schedule than everyone else's, and nobody printed the manual. Level 2. Social battery. Age 15 to 16. Social battery 8 to 2. Followers 186. Confidence 44%. Level 3. Building something real. Somewhere around 17, something shifts, not because the introvert becomes louder, but because they stop trying to. Instead of chasing the kind of confidence that comes from being noticed, they start building the kind that comes from getting good at something. A sketchbook fills up one page at a time. A coding project finally runs without errors at 1 a.m. A guitar riff gets played clean for the first time after weeks of missed notes. None of it happens in front of an audience, and that turns out to be exactly the point. Skill doesn't require anyone to be watching to be real. A library table becomes a regular spot, not because it's quiet, though it is, but because it's where the work actually gets done. A gym session, a coffee shop afternoon with headphones in, an hour in the art room after school. Small, repeated, unglamorous hours that slowly start adding up to something. In that repetition, the question changes. It stops being, "Why can't I be like them?" and starts being, "What am I actually getting better at?" Confidence, it turns out, was never about the size of the room. It was about having something real to bring into it. Slowly, a strange thing happens. A few people start showing up. Not a crowd, a small handful who ask genuine questions about the sketchbook, the code, the playlist, instead of just talking over the silence to fill it. Friendship, it turns out, was never about being the loudest person available. It was about being findable to the right few people. Level 3. Building something real. Age 17. Skills 5. Friends 4. Confidence 76%. Hidden truth. Here's what almost nobody tells an introverted teenager. Being quiet was never the same thing as being afraid. Watching a room before speaking isn't hesitation, it's information gathering. The introvert who says 3 sentences in a 2-hour hangout usually remembers every detail of what everyone else said, long after the loud kids have forgotten the conversation entirely. Silence gets mistaken again and again for having nothing to say, when most of the time it's the opposite. There's so much going on internally that saying it out loud feels almost unnecessary. There's a quieter truth hiding under that one, too. The loudest people in the room aren't always the ones who feel the best about themselves. Sometimes volume is its own kind of costume, filling space that would otherwise feel too quiet to sit in. The introvert spends years assuming everyone else has some secret ease they're missing, without realizing that ease is often just as performed as anything else in that hallway. Even the word itself gets misunderstood. Introverted doesn't mean shy, and it doesn't mean sad. It just means the battery recharges in a different direction, inward instead of outward. Some of the most talkative people in a friend group are introverts too, once they trust the room. The label was never about how much someone talks. It was always about what refills them when the talking is done. Reality check. Here's the part self-help videos about becoming more confident tend to skip. The goal was never to become someone louder. There is no future version of this story where the introvert wakes up one day fully extroverted, energized by crowds, first to speak in every room. That version of growth doesn't arrive, and chasing it is its own quiet trap. Hours spent trying to perform a personality that was never actually theirs.
measured against a version of confidence built for someone else's wiring entirely. The comparison doesn't fully disappear either, even once the skills start piling up. A scroll through social media can still trigger it at 17, the same way it did at 15. A highlight reel is a highlight reel at any age, and knowing that doesn't always stop the sting completely. Some group chats will still go quiet. Some invitations will still not come. The difference isn't that any of this stops happening, it's that it stops being the only measure of whether the year went well. Growth for an introvert doesn't look like becoming the loudest person in the room. It looks like slowly needing that room's approval less and less. There will still be nights, even at 17, spent replaying a conversation that probably meant nothing to the other person at all. There will still be group photos where the introvert is standing slightly at the edge of the frame, not because they weren't included, but because that's simply where they felt comfortable standing. None of that is a sign that the work isn't working. It's just what quiet growth actually looks like from the inside. Less dramatic, more permanent.
The world spends a lot of energy celebrating the loudest voices in it. But some of the strongest people spend years quietly becoming who they were always going to be, long before anyone else notices. By 18, the introvert finally understands something that took years to learn. They never needed to become louder. They just needed a few people who understood the quiet instead of trying to fix it. A handful of real friendships, a few honest conversations, a life with room to breathe in it. Being an introvert was never a weakness waiting to be corrected. It was simply a different way of experiencing the same loud world, one that eventually learns to listen back.